Hello, my name is Emmanuel. In this video, I'll be showing you a demo of the ultimate cost-effective employee performance management application. No monthly subscription required, no premium licenses needed, and it can be customized to adapt to any business process. The aim of this solution is to enable you save costs while boosting productivity. Let's check it out. I'll start with a brief overview of the application to highlight its key features and then move into a step-by-step demo of how it works. The system comprises of three core modules, which are the goal setting, monthly check-ins, and end of the year appraisal. The goal settings lets employees to view HR-defined KPIs, submit their goals, and also route them for managers' review and approval. The monthly check-ins foster continuous engagement between employees and their managers. Employees answer HR's short survey each month so that managers can track progress, intervene early, and view historical check-ins. Employees can also view their prior submissions. The end of the year appraisal scores performance across defined criteria. The workflow typically involves the employee, an appraiser, and a reviewer. But this workflow can be fully configured to match any business process. In addition to these three core modules, the system also has three dashboards. They are the personal details dashboard, the manager's dashboard, and the HR analytics dashboard. The personal details dashboard shows the employee's details and some other information. The manager's dashboard shows a summary of all the appraisal processes where the manager acts as either the appraiser or the reviewer. Also on this dashboard, the manager can view the top performers in their department. And lastly, the manager can also view all pending appraisals. The HR Analytics dashboard summarizes the KPI and appraisal submissions. The top performers across the organizations and across each department can be viewed on this dashboard. The app admin screen is where the life cycle of each module of this system is being controlled. App administrator can set start and end dates and also disable and enable different modules of this application. Admins can reassign appraisals between participants. They can also manage admin access and they can view and navigate to different data sources. With this overview, let's jump into the demo to see each module in action. For the purpose of this demo, I'll be using Kelly Martin as the sample employee. On Kelly's profile, you can see that the manager is Emmanuel, while Cynthia is his reviewer. You will also notice that Kelly's view has fewer menu items compared to the manager's and admin's view. This is because Kelly is neither a manager nor an admin, therefore has restricted access by role in this application. If we check Kelly's goals screen, you'll notice that the goals have not been submitted for approval. But before we submit these goals for approval, let's note that because this is a sample application created specifically for this demo purpose, we've made a few assumptions. One of such assumptions is that the HR department has already uploaded the goals for every employee. Now let's go ahead to submit these goals for approval. Kelly's goals have now been submitted for approval and they are now waiting for a supervisor to approve. Moving on to the check-in module, you would see that Kelly has no record of check-in for the month of August. In this demo, we will go ahead to submit check-in for the month of August for Kelly. Now that we have all the fields filled with information, we would now go ahead to submit the check-in for the month of August. After the successful submission of this check-in, when we click on the completed check-in tab, we can now find this check-in that was recently completed. Another feature available in this check-in module is the print option. Users can print check-ins from previous months and save them in SharePoint or in OneDrive for future references. This is very useful, especially when SharePoint list connected to this module needs to be changed for the coming year. In the appraisal module, you'll notice that Kelly has no appraisal record yet. This is because he has not initiated appraisal for the end of the year. However, for a user to initiate the end of the year appraisal, their goals or KPIs for the year must have been approved by their manager. On the screen, we have the profile of Emmanuel, who is Kelly's manager, as we can see in the direct report section of his dashboard. Before we go ahead to approve Kelly's goals, let's quickly take a look at the check-in module of Kelly's manager. When we click on the manager's team check-in tab and filter by Kelly's name, we can find the submitted check-in from Kelly. As mentioned earlier in the introduction of this video, the check-in module helps to foster continuous engagement between employees and their managers. These survey questions help managers to keep track of progress and also intervene early whenever there are challenges. Now, to approve Kelly's goals, we navigate to the Review Goals screen. We are going to approve Kelly's KPIs, and then we can view the approved KPIs. Now that Kelly's goals have been approved, Kelly can now go ahead to initiate the end of the year appraisal. After Kelly's goals have been approved and the app is refreshed, in order to get into the appraisal form proper, Kelly needs to provide some feedback about his manager's leadership and support over the course of the year. So we will just go ahead now and fill this form and then submit. Now, having answered all these questions, we would go ahead to submit this feedback form. After a successful submission of the manager's feedback form, the user is navigated to the main appraisal form. The main appraisal form consists of different sections. First is the user profile section. Secondly is the key performance indicator section. Then we have the competencies section, final comment section, and the section that is yet to be visible. Another thing to take note of is that once a user is navigated to the appraisal form, they can clearly see the portions of the form they are expected to fill, having this unique background color. Now, for an employee to fill the appraisal form, they are required to score themselves for each KPI based on how well they think they perform on each of those KPIs. Also, it is important to note that appraisal forms dynamically picks all the KPIs that belongs to this user whose appraisal is being acted upon. So as stated earlier, the employee is required to score themselves for each KPI. And when scoring themselves, an employee is expected to score a maximum of the weight set for a particular KPI. So that is to say, for this KPI, the employee cannot score beyond 20, while for this, the employee cannot score beyond 15. So let's say I attempt to input a score that is greater than the assigned weight. So let's say 21. The field property for that input control changes to red, which indicates that a wrong information has been imputed. And for the comments, I will just copy and paste some information there. Now that you have provided all the required information, the employee can now go ahead to submit this appraisal for the next participant. Employees also have the option to save an appraisal for later whenever they feel they are not done filling the form. However, we would just submit this appraisal form. And as we can see, this appraisal process is now awaiting the appraiser, which is Kelly's manager. Now, we will log into the manager's profile and act on this appraisal form. On my screen again is Emmanuel's profile. Emmanuel is Kelly's manager. To act on Kelly's appraisal, we would navigate to the Review Appraisal screen. When we get to the Review Appraisal screen, we know that this appraisal process is currently awaiting the appraiser. So we just go ahead and search for Kelly. Click on Kelly. Now, this is the manager's view of the appraisal form. And from this distinct background color, we can easily see where the manager needs to fill. So we would go ahead to fill in all these fields. Let's also note that the same maximum wage score also applies for the manager when they are assigning scores to the employee. That is to say, a manager cannot score an employee higher than the assigned wage for that particular KPI. And for the comments, I would simply copy and paste some random information there. Now, we would move to the section B of this appraisal form, which is the competencies assessment. The manager is expected to select a score from these available options using this information as a guide. So I'll just go ahead and select scores. Next, the manager is expected to state the areas of strength of the employee and also state the areas where development needs to be done. So I'll just go ahead and copy some random information into those two boxes. Up next is the final comment section of this appraisal form for the manager. The manager is required to select from this drop down one of the options that best suits what he thinks is the performance level of this employee. They are also required to select a recommendation and also input a final comment. And as you can see, there are no more fields with that distinct color, so we can now go ahead and submit this appraisal for the next participants to take action. To view what we just imputed. Kelly Martin. Now we can see all the information that was imputed by the manager. Now, since this appraisal process is currently awaiting the employee, we would log into the employee's profile and take the next action. Now, we are back to Kelly's profile and we would go ahead to take action on the appraisal process. So we navigate to the appraisal screen and then click on this record. So from the employee's view, we can also see all the information we have imputed so far. So the employee also needs to state his remark about the appraisal process by selecting from this drop down. So we'll just say completely agree, and then for the comments, I'll simply copy and paste a random information. I can also just say thank you, and I can go ahead to submit this appraisal process for the next participant. So we can see that this appraisal process is currently awaiting the reviewer. So we will log into the reviewer's profile and take the next action. On our screen now is Cynthia's profile. Cynthia is the reviewer in this appraisal process we are trying to complete. So, in order to take action on this ongoing appraisal process, we would navigate to the Review Appraisal screen. Before we go ahead to act on that appraisal process, let's quickly take a look at this appraisal summary dashboard. You would notice that Cynthia is only involved in just one appraisal process, which is what we are currently working on. And this is saying that that process is currently awaiting the employee. But we know that the process is currently awaiting the reviewer. For Cynthia to be able to get updated information about all the process she is involved in, she simply needs to click on this refresh data button. So the click of that button triggers several flows that gets the updated summary of all the processes the user is involved in this case, Cynthia. So we will now go ahead and act on that appraisal process. So from the reviewer's point of view, you can also see all the information that we've imputed so far, and we can now see where information needs to be provided as the reviewer of this appraisal process. So we would go ahead and do the needful. Okay, fully aligned, approve promotion, and for the comments, I would randomly copy and paste some information. So I can now go ahead and submit this appraisal form. So we can now see that this appraisal process has been completed. So let's briefly take a look at the appraisal process once again. Firstly, the employee initiates the appraisal process, imputes self-score and also employee comments, and submits the appraisal form. The appraisal form goes to the manager, who imputes the manager score, the manager comments, the competency score, areas of strength, opportunities for development, and final appraisal comments, and submit the appraisal form. Next, the appraisal form goes back to the employee to state their remark about the appraisal process and also impute final comments. Once that is done and submitted, the appraisal form now goes to the reviewer, who then checks the appraisal form and imputes their own remark, recommendation, and final comments. So as stated during the introduction of this video, this appraisal process can be customized to match any business process. For example, some other organizations may have more than 3 participants in their employee appraisal process, while other organizations may want different appraisal forms for different levels of employees. Now that this appraisal process has been completed, let's take a look at the admin section of this application. So for example, let us turn off the KPI module. Once the KPI module is turned off, employees will no longer have access to the My Goals screen and the Review Goals screen. However, the app admins would always have access to every module of the application, regardless of the settings. Over here is Kelly's profile, and as you can see, the KPI module is currently off. One last thing I'll be showing us in this demo video is the print option in the appraisal module. Employees also have the option to print a copy of a completed appraisal for future reference. So as we can see in the print screen, we have the user profile section, the appraisal section, together with the indicator and weight, which are these, the employee score and the employee comment, the manager score and the manager comment. And when you click on page 2 of this appraisal screen, we can also see the other scores for the other section of this appraisal process. The advantage of this is that because there will be a need to have a fresh list for subsequent years of appraisal, employees can simply print and save a copy of these appraisal forms for their future reference. And that wraps up the walkthrough of this Power Platform-based performance management system. If you found this demo helpful, don't forget to like and share the video and also subscribe for more solutions like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts or questions in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.